On this Wednesday night, desperation in Gaza.
There are not sufficient food for any of these children to actually have a proper growth.
The protests against aid trucks, the excruciating wait at soup kitchens, and the Israeli Prime Minister's defiance. Defending North America, how the U.S. president's proposed missile shield might work and whether Canada should be part of it. Canada posts new offer to the union, how small businesses are bracing for a potential strike. Plus, he is all ears.
I really want to hear other people's experience.
One retired social worker's mission to cross the country and listen to strangers.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. Israel's prime minister is dismissing his critics, foreign and domestic, who are heavily criticizing his decision to expand the war in Gaza. Speaking only to Israeli media tonight, Benjamin Netanyahu said he intends to take control of Gaza. I am ready to end the war, he said, if all the hostages are returned, Hamas hands over all its weapons and leaves, and we implement President Trump's plan. The U.S. president has said he wants to take over Gaza and develop it into a resort. There are reports that includes relocating up to 1 million Palestinians to Libya. Right now, Gaza remains a war zone. More than 80 people, including women and children, were killed on Wednesday. That's according to the health ministry there. People are on the move again, searching somewhere for safe zones, but there are none. Redmond Shannon has our top story tonight.
80 days since the start of Israel's blockade on Gaza. Soup kitchens with any supply are overwhelmed. This man says after more than 5 hours waiting, he got enough lentil soup for his family. He says they went without food yesterday.
As we speak, there are no fruits into the Gaza Strip. There are no dairy products. There are not sufficient food for any of these children to actually have a proper growth.
Israel's military says 200 aid trucks have been allowed into Gaza this week. Aid groups say 500 are needed daily, and those permitted in remain in a holding area. The United Nations says the onward route into Gaza that Israel has approved is too dangerous. For some Israelis, even this much aid is too much. This Israeli man accuses counter-protesters who support aid deliveries of defending vile murderers.
We want to make sure that aid is going in. We want to make sure that things get better slowly in Gaza and that we end this war.
The conflict among Israeli citizens reflected in its politics. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu lashed out at his opponents. Among them, left-wing party leader and former military general Yair Golan, who said Tuesday a sane country does not kill babies as a hobby. After threats of action from Canada and other Israeli allies, Pope Leo led growing international calls Wednesday for aid and peace, saying children, the sick and elderly are paying the highest price.
Was that a question or a statement?
As for Israel's largest ally, the US, President Donald Trump dodged a question about whether he would talk with Netanyahu about Gaza aid. Redmond Shannon, Global News, London.
This happened while diplomats, including 4 Canadians, were on an official mission in the West Bank city of Jenin. Israeli forces fired shots and the group scrambled to safety. No one was hurt. Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister says she has summoned Israel's ambassador to convey Canada's concerns, and the Prime Minister expects a full investigation.
What happened is totally unacceptable. It's some of many things that are totally unacceptable that's going on in the region.
The IDF later apologized, saying it had fired what it called warning shots after the group deviated from an approved route. A little later, Heather West speaks to 2 Palestinian Canadian families about what their loved ones in Gaza are enduring. President Trump's ambitious plan to build a missile defense shield isn't going down well with China. China wants Washington to abandon the plan, claiming the U.S. is obsessed with seeking absolute security for itself and that it undermines global strategic balance and stability. And in Moscow, a spokesman for the Kremlin says a missile shield could force the resumption of contacts between Moscow and Washington about nuclear arms control. Canada's Prime Minister said today his government is considering whether to participate in the so-called Golden Dome.
We are in a position now where we cooperate when necessary, but not necessarily cooperate. So we have other options for that cooperation. We are pursuing those other options.
Mercedes Stephenson reports on what we know about the plan and how it could impact Canadian sovereignty.
A missile defense system that can shield North America from threats is a decades-long dream. Former U.S. President Ronald Reagan introduced the idea in 1983.
We could intercept and destroy strategic ballistic missiles before they reached our own soil or that of our allies.
A system nicknamed Star Wars because it was space-based. Former President George W. Bush built a ground-based missile defense system after 9/11. And now President Donald Trump is proposing the Golden Dome.
We will truly be completing the job that President Reagan started 40 years ago.
The Golden Dome is modeled off Israel's Iron Dome, a system that uses ground-based radar to intercept incoming missiles. An exact replica would not work for the U.S. and Canada because of the massive size difference. The Golden Dome would likely use ground and space-based sensors along with space-based interceptor missiles to shoot down incoming threats.
Canada has called us and they want to be a part of it, so we'll be talking to them.
It's not the first time Canada has been invited to participate in missile defense. In 2005, former Prime Minister Paul Martin's government declined a U.S. invitation to join the ballistic missile defense system over concerns about losing seats in Quebec. A mistake that damaged NORAD, according to former Foreign Affairs Minister John Manley, leaving Canada with an odd policy: monitor and shoot down all air-breathing threats except missiles.
We'd shoot down a passenger airliner, but we wouldn't shoot down a missile that was headed for Chicago.
Wednesday night on Parliament Hill, Prime Minister Mark Carney said it's time for Canada to change that and be actively involved in its own defense against the evolving missile threat.
We have an ability, if we so choose, to complete the Golden Dome with investments and partnership. And it's something that we are looking at and something that has been discussed at a high level.
A plan that might keep Canada out of the crosshairs of missiles and the White House.
Presumably, it'll mitigate against some of the worst excesses of the Trump administration, and it allows us to get serious about a very dangerous and growing threat.
Donna, the government has promised to ramp up defense spending and modernize NORAD. How Canada's role in the Golden Dome system would fit into that is still being discussed.
Okay, Mercedes Stephenson in Ottawa, thanks. The threat of another postal strike still looms. The deadline is Friday. Canada Post has put a new offer out to the union. As Felicia Parrillo reports, the company says it has rejected the union's request for a 2-week pause on the strike deadline while it assesses that offer.
Every afternoon, Mike Loftus prepares about a dozen packages for his local Canada Post carrier. But recently, he's decided to put that on hold and stop shipping out any more products until the labor dispute is resolved.
After my experience last strike and the ensuing confusion, the extra work, the lost revenue, the lost parcels, it was a no-brainer.
On the heels of a second strike in 6 months, on Wednesday, the Crown Corporation has issued a new set of offers to the union representing postal workers. Canada Post says it has increased its wage offer, totaling more than 13% over 4 years. The offer also includes the creation of new part-time positions, emphasizing the need for flexible employees through the week. And it proposes dynamic routing to optimize delivery routes and work hours needed to deliver the volume of products available every day.
We think they're good offers. We think they're generous where we can be and preserve everything else that is important to our employees. And we should be sitting down talking ASAP.
According to Canada Post, the union had proposed a 2-week pause on the strike as it reviews the latest offer, something the company rejected, saying the time for a deal is now.
We've given and provided an offer that should provide the basis for that deal. So let's get it done, let's move on, and let's move forward.
And some labor analysts say the timing of a strike wouldn't be in the union's favor.
The strike leverage is low for the union. It got this report, which basically lines up with everything management was saying. Again, leverage not great. And now it has this offer from Canada Post that is pretty much giving them everything they wanted.
Meanwhile, Canadians must wait, some on pins and needles, hoping both sides can keep the ball rolling. Felicia Parrillo, Global News, Montreal.
At the sexual assault trial of 5 former World Junior hockey players, testimony from one of their former teammates was under the microscope today. The Crown is raising concerns that Brett Howden had inconsistencies in what he told the court compared to what he said in the past. Nathaniel Dove was in the courtroom, and a warning, some of the details in the testimony are graphic. Nathaniel.
Donna, the Crown prosecutor moved for a voir dire, a kind of trial within the trial, for her own witness. On Tuesday, that witness repeated over and over again that he does not remember what happened. The Crown then suggested that he was feigning memory loss. The judge ruled he wasn't. A woman known as EM accuses 5 2018 World Junior hockey players, Carter Hart, Michael McLeod, Alex Fermenton, Dylan Dubé, and Cal Foote, of having non-consensual group sex with her in a London, Ontario hotel room in 2018. They have all pleaded not guilty. The Crown prosecutor called Brett Howden to testify. He's a former teammate who said he was in the hotel room with the accused and complainant during the alleged assaults. He was not charged in the case. The Crown attorney, Megan Cunningham, moved to examine his testimony against what he said to police and Hockey Canada years before the trial. The Crown told the judge he says he has no present memory of having seen that slap. Then she said he appears to remember it in a 2018 text entered as evidence to another teammate who wasn't charged. Cunningham then quoted the text saying, "When I was leaving, Dubé was smacking this girl's ass so hard it looked like it hurt so bad." The Crown also referenced Howden testifying that he didn't remember if EM was upset at any point. The Crown then referred to the 2018 statement where he says, "I just kind of heard weeping." After the judge's ruling, the lawyers moved to discuss more voir dires surrounding the circumstances around Howden's previous statements. Donna?
Okay, Nathaniel Dove in London, Ontario. Thank you. Manitoba's ethics commissioner has found former Premier Heather Stephenson and 2 of her cabinet ministers breached conflict of interest rules in pushing for the approval of a mine. In October 2023, after Stephenson lost the election, her government took steps to approve a license for a silica sand mine without the approval of the incoming government. The ethics commissioner found that was a breach of the Caretaker Convention, which requires major decisions not be made by an outgoing government during a transition period. There was no evidence Stephenson or her 2 ministers would benefit financially from the approval. They've been fined $40,000. In central Quebec, this giant crater opened up early this morning, cutting off a rural road and swallowing an entire home. No one was inside the house at the time. 3 other homes have since been evacuated. Authorities say the cause is not clear, but there had been a lot of rain in the region. An ambush in the Oval Office. Coming up, the extraordinary thing President Trump did during a visit by South Africa's president. When U.S. President Donald Trump welcomed South Africa's leader to the Oval Office today, it was thought the meeting would focus on trade and restoring relations. But then Trump asked his staff to dim the lights and play a video. Trump then confronted South Africa's president with false claims of a genocide against white farmers. As Jackson Prosco reports, Trump appears to be twisting the facts.
South African President Cyril Ramaphosa knew this would be a tough meeting.
We are essentially here to reset the relationship.
Inside the Oval Office, he was ambushed by President Donald Trump, who pushed discredited claims about a white genocide of South African farmers.
We have thousands of stories talking about it.
At one point, Trump played a video featuring clips from fringe politicians who are not part of South Africa's government, and showed a clip that claims to be a memorial to murdered white farmers.
Have they told you where that is, Mr. President? No, I'd like to know where that is, because this I've never seen. Horrible death.
Trump then confronted Ramaphosa with newspaper articles, but only ones mentioning white farmers.
People who do get killed, unfortunately through criminal activity, are not only white people. Majority of them are black people.
The tense meeting came months after Trump canceled all U.S. aid to South Africa and expelled the South African ambassador. Since then, Trump has embraced false genocide claims peddled by his South African-born advisor, Elon Musk, who was invited to the meeting.
Terrible things are happening in South Africa.
It's a genocide that's taking place.
Welcome to the United States of America.
Last week, the U.S. accepted 59 white Afrikaners as refugees, adding more fuel to the genocide claims at a time when America has closed its doors to refugees of other nationalities.
In South Africa, it's widely disputed. So there's not enough data to be able to say whether or not one particular race is being victimized.
Ultimately, the South African president acknowledged he's seeking a trade deal with the U.S. and even offered up critical mineral rights to Trump. The face-to-face made it clear that Trump is willing to let unproven and inflammatory claims set his foreign policy agenda, in a worrying sign for other world leaders. Donna?
All right, Jackson Prosco in Washington, thank you. The U.S. Defense Department has formally accepted a luxury jet as a gift from the Qatari government. Trump wants the Boeing 747 to eventually replace Air Force One and has been heavily criticized for accepting it. The Pentagon says it will oversee a rapid upgrade of the aircraft and that it will need extensive work before it's considered secure enough to carry the president. Fight for survival ahead. Palestinian Canadians describe the daily struggle of loved ones in Gaza. In Australia's southeast, people are being rescued from rooftops as record flooding swamps parts of New South Wales. Rivers are overflowing after more than 5 months of rain fell in just 24 hours. Nearly 50,000 people have been cut off and livestock has been lost. More heavy rain is in the forecast. As the conflict in Gaza drags on and Israel's assault expands, Palestinian Canadians with loved ones there say all they can do is watch their family members die. With no safe place to shelter and little access to food, each day is a fight for survival. Heather West spoke with 2 Canadian families about their fears and their grief.
The suffering and desperation of people crying out for food in Gaza City is being felt a world away, especially by those with family in those crowds. Calgary's Tamer Jarada says his father-in-law is among those now starving in the region.
We hear it in their voices that they are really struggling. I've been dealing with health issues that they haven't seen before, they haven't experienced before, because of the lack of food.
Jarada has lost 17 members of his family, including his parents and 2 sisters, in the almost 20-month-long siege. Even their grave sites have been destroyed. Losses that have been compounded with news this week of more loved ones lost within the tight-knit group of Palestinian Canadians across the country.
A Palestinian from Gaza who applied for his entire family to come to Canada, and he woke up on the news of losing his entire family in Gaza.
From our own community, we have documented over 100 persons who got a Canadian visa or the code to get the Canadian visa to come to Canada, and these people were killed in the past few months.
Launched in early 2024, Canada's special visa program for Gazans with family in Canada has seen very limited success. Fewer than 1,000 people were able to make it to Canada, and in those cases, only if they were able to find a way out of Gaza on their own.
And now my brother is having a very critical health condition. These are people who are in need for medical evacuation.
Families fearing more heartbreak, afraid they will see more loved ones die. Heather West, Global News, Calgary.
Unconditional acceptance, why a retired social worker is lending an ear to strangers across the country. Ottawa is off to a winning start in the PWHL finals. Alternate captain Emily Clark was the overtime hero. Her goal gave the Charge a 1-0 lead in the best-of-5 series against the Minnesota Frost. The puck drops for Game 2 in Ottawa on Thursday. Well, life can move really fast these days, and it can feel like we're all caught in the blur of it and that no one's listening. Well, a retired social worker in Nova Scotia is taking the time to stop and listen embarking on what he describes as a cross-Canada listening journey. Heidi Petrachik met the man who is lending his ear to strangers.
It starts in Halifax with a sign, a table, and 2 chairs. Then 70-year-old Paul Jenkinson sits and waits.
First, I have to center myself. I have to become 100% present.
No cost listening, the sign says. On this day on the waterfront, folks are curious.
This is really cool. Thank you so much. I might be back.
Yeah?
Some stop to chat.
Recently had his wife pass away, so my mom just passed away.
Yeah, that's a sorrow.
Something he knows too well. Paul's daughter died in an auto accident in 2007 at only 30 years old.
The other day, somebody came by and said, "You are not alone." That's a beautiful message. She was crying. Her mother died on Mother's Day. And I said, heart to heart, my heart to your heart, my daughter died on Mother's Day.
And perhaps his own experience helped spark the idea for this, one he got during the isolation of the pandemic.
If we listen, we'll learn. If we talk, we just hear ourselves.
After 40 years as a social worker, he now plans to use his savings to do this all the way to the West Coast. Fundraising for coffee, gas, and the occasional motel stay if he can't find kind strangers to take him in.
You will find ways, through conversation with Paul that will help you to feel lighter and see the brighter side of life.
What am I grateful for today? He'll probably find a lot of people that are needing someone to talk to.
In a world that seems to amplify those who spend their time doing this, Paul Jenkinson is proof there's power in simply taking time to listen. Heidi Petrachik, Global News, Halifax.
No cost listening. I love it. That is Global National for this Wednesday. I'm Donna Friesen. Tonight's Your Canada showcases Upper Ferry, Newfoundland and Labrador, Northern Sunrise County, Alberta, and Manitoulin Island, Ontario. Keep them coming. Please send your pictures of Canadian pride to Global National at globalnews.ca. And thanks for watching. Hope to see you here again tomorrow. Bye-bye.